Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and today I'll be reading an Arlecchino listener by me. So let's get into it. The argument had started as something small, a disagreement over something, perhaps a misunderstanding in the first place. Something so trivial you could barely remember what lit the fuse. But in the span of a few minutes, it had become a true problem. You stood in the courtyard of the house. The man in front of you, another Fatui agent, broad-shouldered and hot-tempered, was raising his voice again. I told you to stay out of it. Do you think just because you're favored by her you can ignore orders? You clenched your fists, refusing to back down. I was doing what needed to be done. If I hadn't stepped in, the mission would have failed. And yet it almost did. He cut you off, his voice echoing through the courtyard. Around you, a few younger agents had started to gather, drawn by the commotion. You saw their uncertain faces from the corner of your eye, and you heard the whispers. Nobody dared to step in. You lifted your chin. You're just angry because I made you look bad, not because I was wrong. That made something in his expression twist. You insolent piece of... You barely saw it. His hand moved fast, a flash in your peripheral vision. Fingers curling as his arm swung forward, but then it never connected. And when you blinked, the man's wrist was frozen mid-swing, caught in a grip so tight his knuckles were already turning white. And standing there, between you and him, was her, Arlecchino. Her hand held his wrist like it was nothing, effortless and unflinching. Her eyes were sharper than any blade, and for the first time since the shouting began, the courtyard went completely silent. Father? One of the children whispered somewhere behind you. And Arlecchino didn't speak at first. She simply stood there, the air around her heavy with quiet fury. You could see the way the man froze, every muscle locked in place under her gaze. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm, too calm. Would you like to show me what you're about to do? The man's voice stammered. Lord Arlecchino, I... Finish that sentence carefully, she said, cutting him off. Her voice never needed to rise, but every syllable carried the kind of authority that could bring entire regions to heel. He swallowed hard, his bravado disintegrating. I wasn't going to... Her eyes flicked to the side, towards you. For just a heartbeat, you saw something flicker there. Not just anger, but something sharper. She felt protective. You knew that. Then she turned back to him, her expression returning to be cold once again. You will apologize, she said simply. He hesitated, and that was enough. Her grip tightened, not enough to break bone, but enough to make him wince, to send the silent message. My apologies, Lion, he said, bowing his head deeply, and yet blinked, caught off guard by how small his voice sounded now. Arlecchino released his wrist, slow and deliberate. Good. Now, get out of my sight. He didn't wait for her to say it twice. He turned and walked away so quickly he almost stumbled, disappearing down the corridor without looking back. The courtyard was still for a long time. Nobody spoke. Finally, Arlecchino turned to face you. Did he hurt you? You shook your head quickly. No, he You didn't get to do anything. You were already here. Her eyes swept over you anyway, scanning for any sign of harm. Only when she was satisfied did her shoulders ease the slightest bit. You shouldn't let someone like him bait you, she said, voice softer now, but firm nonetheless. I wasn't going to let him talk down to me. I can defend myself. Her gaze flicked up to meet yours. You shouldn't have to. People like that have no place in here. You should have let me know. Arlie, Before you could finish, she took a step closer, her fingers brushing against your cheek faintly, like she was checking again that you were here, unheard. And she was being surprisingly gentle. Her voice, when she spoke next, was quiet enough that only you could hear. If he had touched you, even once. Her tone darkened, her eyes glinting crimson. You wouldn't have left this courtyard. You sighed softly, placing your hand over hers. You can't keep threatening everyone who looks at me wrong. I don't threaten, I promise. And I deliver on those promises. That made you half laugh despite yourself. What can I even say to convince you at this point? Nothing? Well, at least I tried, you say. And she wrapped an arm around your waist. Let's go inside, she said. And you couldn't help but smile, nodding as you both walked inside. And as for the guy, it wasn't like Arlecchino was done with him. She was simply done in front of you. You had a sensitive heart sometimes, and a guilty conscience, and she didn't want to worry you. Asked her how she would deal with him. That is something that only she should know, and only he shall see. You wouldn't have to think about it, and what you don't know certainly will not hurt you. For now, she was just going to make sure you get your mind off of it. And as for her revenge, she always loved it to be served cold.